Planning ahead before you set up a reef aquarium is probably one of the most important things to do. You want to make sure you do your research, have a goal, have a plan, and set up a budget. One thing I really like about this hobby is that you are constantly learning different things to maintain your reef aquarium. So if you're farther along in the planning stages and you have rocks and sand and water in your aquarium and you're looking to add a fish to your reef tank, we talk all about when to add a fish to your aquarium. Should you add them first? What fish you should add last, and how to research and make a plan for adding fish to your aquarium.
Like I said, just make sure, and another thing that I like to do with my tanks, I'm setting up a tank while it's cycling. I try to start planning out exactly like what my plans are for the tank, what direction I want to go with. Because you don't just want to walk into a local fish store and just buy a random fish. I mean,
absolutely right. Yeah.
You really want to take into consideration how big it's going to get, what size your tank is, and if it's going to do anything to help benefit your tank, or if it's going to be like a predator fish, or it's going to be aggressive. I mean, that all plays into factor. Usually, in my personal experiences, I always try to add the most aggressive fish towards the end of the stocking of the tank. That way your previous fish can kind of establish their territories before you add that super territorial fish or aggressive fish into the system. And I just like to, plan out kind of what I want to put in the tank. I get a list going on my phone and on notes or whatever. Come up with ideas on what fish I want to put in, what corals. That way I can know, okay, yes, I can keep this. I'm going to keep these corals. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There really is. So, like I said, always try to take your time with things and just plan things out ahead of time. I think that's a good way to also help with issues.
Yeah, definitely. We always talk about here on the channel, having a goal, making a plan, and setting a budget, right? So
yeah,
the goal is what type of equipment or what type of tank you're looking to set up. Then you make a plan on how to get that equipment and that fish. And then you take a look at your budget. So that way, to your point, you know what you're looking for when you go into the fish store. So
yeah.
In my case, looking for a powder blue tang, I know what I'm looking for. I can see it, I can inspect it, check it out, and then give it some time too. Especially don't make any impulse decisions. I made an impulse decision and bought a goatfish one time.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted one of those fish because they looked cool and they went through the sand and everything. But dude, I think that he was probably the reason my 210 came down with ick.
Yeah.
Because everything was good, and then I added this guy and just destroyed things.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's a fish that really shouldn't even be in the hobby. I mean, those things, they're obviously parasite prone, and they have such a high metabolism. They eat constantly. They're constantly when they're sifting through your sand, they're looking for food. That's what they do for their whole lives. They eat. So I mean, I don't think they get the nutritional value that they really need. Because I mean, I know a few people that have had goatfish long term, but they always just end up dying off after a few months.
Knowing the fish before you buy them, you know what type of tank you're setting up to. So you're going to want fish that have a certain job in the tank, right?
Yeah.
So because you're going to get algae in the tank. So having fish that go after algae, not just fish that look nice, right? Get some fish that do a job, then get some fish that look nice.
Yeah.
Then add your aggressive fish last, like you were saying. Yeah.
And I mean, I get people all the time that are like, oh, I have a nano tank and I have algae. I can't put a tang in there. What do I do? There's so many options. I mean, you got blennies, mollies, even different species of snails and stuff will help with the job. I mean, there's so many different options and avenues to go down in the saltwater hobby specifically. There's just such a range, and there's solutions to most everything really. So, and like you were saying, there's pretty much a fish for every job in your tank. So I always kind of tangs. I tend to add them a little later down the road. Once the tank's established, you get a little bit of algae here and there. Maybe put a blenny in before you get a tang, and if that's maintaining the algae, maybe not add the tang. But I always try to keep tangs in my tank. They maintain the algae. I have a lot of macroalgae in the 75 gallon that grows relatively fast, all the caulerpas and stuff.
Yeah.
So the tangs team to trim that up really well. I actually just added an Atlantic blue yesterday to kind of help with the doctor fish, keeping the caulerpas all trimmed up and keeping up with their growth. But it's always nice to, have fish that help you take care of your tank. I mean, that's always a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. If you love the aquarium hobby and you need help with the goals that you have for your reef tank, help creating a plan, or even researching and learning more about the reef aquarium hobby so that your reef aquarium can thrive, then consider subscribing to the Coral Reef Talk. And if you've enjoyed this video, then I know you're gonna like this video here. So please click or tap your screen to watch that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.